Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another one of my EverQuest Legends class overview videos. On this one, I'm going to be going over the Ranger, and what I've been liking to do is looking at their class, their strengths, things to consider when you're picking them, as well as going over some of the class combos that I think they fit in well with and stuff like that. So based off of like my pre-order beta experience playing the classes. So with Rangers getting started out here, they have access to the different stances here, like balanced stance, evasive stance, offensive stance, and ranged stance. For their invocations, they've got divine, inversion, overchannel, recovery, and spellblade. So with their strengths, I got them that they have the great attack stat based on a lot of their self buffs and the AAs that give them big boosts to their attack stat, which is going to help them, hit more and do more damage. Really nice. They have the strike through AA as well, which I think is really awesome. What it does is it'll take a chance for something that was blocked or parried, for instance, and do damage through that. So it's going to help them push more damage overall, which is really awesome. They have access to Druid's spell line of things, so they're going to have like the swarm spells, the lightning spells, and stuff like that, just at a lower level than a druid would. And then, Spirit of the Wolf, which is a big one. And then they're going to have access to tracking. And when you have it leveled up, you're going to be able to track like the entire zone. And if you've seen it on the game's map, you can access a tracking circle around you that shows the whatever you're tracking in real time, so you can kind of see where they are, mouse over them, see what's up, things like that. Really awesome ability all in all. But I kind of also wanted to go over with some things to consider for the Ranger. That they have access to that ranged stance, and based on my experience playing it, it wasn't pushing as much damage as I would have wanted it to, so I put that the DPS is low. It is completely different, so it has that flavor text of being able to hit without being in melee, so you're not going to be subject to like mobs turning on you to attack you when you are in like with a pet or something like that. It also lets you double and triple attack with a bow and attack from a closer range, if that makes sense. So there is like a minimum range you can attack from with your bow if you don't have range stance active. Well, that eliminates it so that you can be close and still shoot with your bow. I found it to be a little clunky when I was playing with it, and some of those reasons why would be like, well, if I get in close to melee range, with how much damage the Ranger does in melee range, I kind of wanted it to switch to melee almost, so so I found myself having to stance dance to switch into an offensive stance when I got close, for instance. And it did work. I think it's great. I was using it from a ranged on purpose so that I could keep hitting damage while I was casting other spells from a safe distance. One of the things I noticed was higher, like in the end game, the monsters are going to summon you. And so it didn't matter what my threat level was. The mob still pulled me into melee range, and that instantly made them turn on me because they were being tanked by my pet. So, the game finds interesting ways to go around that, and I think the range stance, what it does give you is a ton of accuracy, and the Rangers have self buffs to give them self accuracy, like the Hawkeye permanent buff, and it was pretty cool that you were not missing a lot. But what I was gauging it on was how fast my endurance was going down, and I would notice that it didn't have much of a drain on endurance to be back in range stance, which honestly is kind of nice as well, because if you do need to switch over to evasive stance or whatever, it's a nice kind of way to get your breath, sort of a thing, if that makes sense. So, you know, I feel like it could use some more damage. Some of the things that I've seen in the discussion would be like, you know, melee classes don't need a special stance to do double and triple attacks, right? So having that as a necessity to do the ranged stance for ranger, which is kind of like, you know, they are a ranger, right? It was interesting. I would want to see something like maybe a 25% damage increase on there, or even like a 25% faster attack, you know, similar to like the berserker stance that the berserkers get. So some of the stuff I've heard would be that people would go with a berserker and a ranger so that you can go into berserker stance instead of range stance to shoot more arrows. And, you know, I didn't get to mess with that much. I find it, you know, it's like you're missing out on like the double and triple shots in that case, I think. So anyway, interesting. There's, I think, things to consider onto that. I would like to see them make the Rangers range stance, or, you know, even give them like something like how Frenzy and Cleave are reducing Rampage. You know, if they had some sort of a AoE bow shot, you know, that did an attack to all the enemies in range or something that got reduced while you're in range stance, you know, every arrow hit reduced the cooldown or something. I think something like that would be cool. It just needs a little. I don't think it needs a lot, but that's my 2 cents on that. So they don't have a way to slow the enemy's attack speed, and they don't have a way to like feign death or escape out of a combat situation. And then the last thing I kind of wanted to mention was that they only have the evasive stance for tanking. So they don't label a ranger as a tank like they do the Shadow Knights and the Paladins. In my opinion, I think their defensive stance, their stats are still good for tanking, but the limiting factor there is that they only get the evasive stance. So evasive stance gives you that 95% chance to dodge incoming melee, which is awesome, but it will drain your endurance really fast. So things to kind of consider. But all around, I think Rangers are sneaky good. You know, when I was kind of looking at them, though, the option for strike through and high attack really, I think, it's just really strong, you know. And the other class, I'll talk about it soon. It's like the Shadow Knights get some ways to buff their attack power through draining the enemy. So I think if you had something like that, you could be getting massive attack stats and being able to pierce through the enemy's defenses. You know, I just think it sounds fun. Rangers are one of the classes I played on live way back in the day. My very first guy I made was a Ranger, and I always loved them. Had a soft spot for Rangers, so I did play a Ranger, you know. And to talk about some of the combos, I played the Ranger up to 50 in the Preorder Beta and took him to Plane of Sky, and that's where my experience of being summoned is from. The combo I took was a Cleric Enchanter Ranger, and the idea was, instead of going in with the Monk to DPS in melee range, I would step back with the bow and shoot arrows. And you know, it's one of those things you have to kind of look into, is upgrading your arrows as well as your bow damage. So it worked well. It was great because I could stand back, cast spells, and not take a lot of damage, so I could let my pet focus on tanking more while I healed him as a cleric. And I liked it. I thought it was fun. There is going to be more testing I want to do when this goes live with the Rangers, It's a very fun class, and then having the added utility of tracking just makes dungeon crawling awesome. You know, farming a Pegasus cloak, awesome. I like Ranger on a lot of levels. I really hope that you enjoyed my kind of brief synopsis here. Let me know in the comments kind of what you're thinking about doing with your trio. And then, as always, you know, thank you for watching the videos and sticking it out to the end here. I really appreciate you. See you guys soon.